This dish uses Korean and Chinese ingredients to make a spicy, chewy, magical plate of food that is one of my favorite meals of all time.
Pete, you want to do this with me? You want to do this with me? Hello, welcome. Today we're going to be making, I can't really call it a signature dish, but it is something that I make a lot. And it uses both Chinese ingredients and Korean ingredients to make something that is inspired by a restaurant that I miss very dearly that was in Fishtown in Philadelphia. Chewy Fishtown, if you're familiar. They had this on the menu and it was the first time I'd ever seen these Tteok, which are Korean rice cakes. They're used in a dish that's called Tteok. I'm doing my best at the pronunciations of everything here. As a white girl from the Midwest. They are so fun. If you've never had them before, I highly, highly recommend them. They're completely made out of rice. I like this kind. They also have like a sliced kind. Those are great also. I just like these because they're thicker and they have just a little bit more texture. But if you can only find the sliced ones, they'll work great also. Tteok, the Korean dish, has like a fermented chili sauce. I have made that before and it's delicious. It's with a fermented chili paste called gochujang. It's like a spicy red sauce. So we're also going to be making a spicy red sauce for these, but instead it'll be more of the ingredients for a Mapo Tofu, which is a Szechuan dish that is normally ground pork, silken tofu in a red spicy sauce. We're not going to do the pork today. We're just going to do the tofu and the rice cakes. Normally Mapo Tofu is served like with white rice on the side. So this just kind of puts the rice inside of it in the form of the Korean rice cakes. Normally I've been measuring out my ingredients ahead of time and putting them in my cute little dishes because I think that's adorable, but that's not really how I cook, and I thought it might be more useful to just show you kind of more exactly how I cook. I don't really measure things most of the time unless I'm baking. I just kind of eyeball things. I have measured this out very precisely in the past, so I know that the exact measurements that are on the website do work, but I'm not going to measure things. I'm just going to make it as I would normally. And please let me know if you prefer that, if it's more helpful, or if you'd rather me go back to like just making it pretty. For the tofu, you're going to want a tofu that is a silken, extra firm. A bunch of scallions here. I usually use about 6. And then I keep my ginger in the freezer, washed and trimmed, but not peeled because I don't mind the peel. And I'm gonna try to find a piece that's like about an inch. This is really thin, even though it's a little longer than an inch. So I'm gonna use that much ginger. Also gonna use about 3 cloves of garlic. This one's really small, so let's do 4. The base of the sauce is fermented chili bean paste. This is a Szechuan ingredient. Sometimes I've seen it spelled differently, sometimes in English when it's transliterated, but pronounced something like dobenjang. This is what really gives the Mapo Tofu its like signature flavor. Good old Trader Joe's soy sauce. Oyster sauce. If oysters aren't on the menu for you, you can use a vegetarian oyster sauce, which are usually made with mushrooms. Very good. Then I have some Shaoxing cooking wine. I have today the ubiquitous Laogama spicy chili crisp, but any chili crisp that you like or spicy chili oil that you like will work well. I would definitely find one that has solids in it. Sometimes the chili oils are just the oil and you want something with solids in it. This one's kind of medium on the spiciness level. We are putting a lot in though, so it's gonna get a little spicy, just a little. I am just gonna use better than bouillon today, or you can use like boxed or homemade broth or stock. And then the last very important ingredient in here, I have toasted Szechuan peppercorns. This is what they look like. This is what they look like. They are pink and they offer the numbing flavor that Szechuan food is famous for. You can tell I do really go through these. They are so good. Sometimes I'll just roast green beans and just like put some of the peppercorns on top. These I just dry roasted in a pan and I put into this little pepper grinder. Neither of these dishes, neither tteokbokki or Mapo Tofu, traditionally have a green vegetable in them, but I like putting a green vegetable in. I had it like that in one restaurant one time and it was so good. The way that the greens just like soak up the sauce is excellent. So I'm gonna say this is optional, but everything's optional in life. So normally I use either bok choy or just like broccoli, or if I can find Chinese broccoli, gailan, I'll use that. But today the co-op had this. Are you joking? It is so freaking pretty. So this is tatsoi, which is another Asian green. It tastes very similar to, it's kind of like a cross between spinach and bok choy in my according to my palette, but it was just so pretty. I couldn't. I literally picked up the bok choy and put it in my cart, and then I was like, no. The tatsoi has to come home with me. It was so striking. Even a man came up to me like while I was strolling around in my cart, and I was like, what is that? I think that's it. Oh no, and then I also have some oil. This is just high heat neutral oil for frying everything at the beginning. I also have a small pot of very salty boiling water that I'm going to boil the tofu in before I add it into the stir fry, so that it is less likely to fall apart. Just boiling it for a few minutes can make it just a little bit more sturdy. If you don't care about the tofu falling apart, you don't have to do it. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. I'm hungry. I'm gonna get cooking.
I am a slow mover, and I am trying fervently to accept this about myself. This shows up in micro and macro ways, and it will tie into this recipe, I promise. Small ways that moving slowly has showed up in my life and caused me trouble. In dance classes, I excelled at moving slowly, but for quicker movements, I was always told to be bolder, sharper, faster. I take a really long time to wake up in the morning, and even longer to get ready. Working in food service for many years really rattled my system. Like, I literally still have nightmares about it, even though it's been 5 years, because moving quickly for 8 hours straight was so viciously uncomfortable. And now, even though I have a wish and the goal to make weekly videos for you all, I'm lucky if I get you 2 per month. The bigger ways are hard to see, but they're still there. I just turned 34, and I don't know if I want to be a parent. I just really thought I would know that by now. There are a lot of other things I thought I would know by now about what I want out of life, and before my birthday, I actually had a huge meltdown about this. What came out of that meltdown wasn't answers. I don't have answers. But the message that came through loud and clear was that I have to be okay with my pace. So that's what I've been working on. And here's how it ties into this recipe. I grew up going to an Americanized Chinese and Korean restaurant called Mandarin House. The way that they made dishes like pork fried rice and egg drop soup, bibimbap, chicken and broccoli are to this day the gold standard that I put any other restaurant and my own cooking up against. As a suburban European-American family in the 90s, this was my first introduction to Korean food, and we went at least once a week from before I was born until they closed. Cut to living in Philadelphia in the 20-teens, where I had access to more authentically made dishes and fell in love with Mapo Tofu, which quickly became my absolute favorite food. I eventually tried to make my own versions at home through a process of trial and error that involved a lot of online research, eating at different restaurants, and also a lot of error. And then I went to a non-traditional restaurant that had a dish called Mapo Tofu rice cakes, and I had Tteok for the first time. I immediately started buying them to cook at home, both traditional Korean tteokbokki in a gochujang sauce, and also Shanghai style with a thick brown sauce and a bunch of vegetables. Eventually, I started trying to recreate the Mapo Tofu rice cakes, and after many iterations, this version emerged. So I feel like this dish is over 34 years in the making, at least my part of it. I think my love and reverence for Chinese and Korean food goes back to the incredible people at Mandarin House, who treated us like family, even with thick language barriers and cultural differences, and has continued as I've soaked up as much culinary knowledge as I can since then, making Mapo Tofu over and over and over until I felt like it was good enough to write down, and now good enough to share. If you haven't had Mapo Tofu or tteokbokki, I highly recommend that you make one of the traditional versions I have linked below, just so that you have some context and can learn a little bit more of the nuance from people whose grandmothers taught them how to make this food, as opposed to me. I learned on the internet. After that, I highly suggest you give these Mapo Tofu Tteok a try. I think they are worth the time it took to perfect, and I hope you will think so too.
My mouth has been watering for the entire time I've been making this. It smells so good, and I am so excited. Let's try it. Oh my god. I don't even want to talk, I just want to sit down and eat this. But let me tell you about it. There is no lack of flavor in this. Like, that's for sure. It's very, very flavorful. I mean, you saw that sauce. There's a lot of flavor in it, and it is so good. Tteok is just one of the most fun foods to eat. So bouncy, so chewy, in like such a delightful way. The flavors of Mapo Tofu, the bounciness of the rice cakes, plus a lot of really good green vegetable, which you know I love a green vegetable. For the full written recipe with all of the ingredient amounts, you can go to my website. It's linked below. Oops. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back soon with more recipes, more DIYs. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. I'm sending you big hugs from Wisconsin. Take care. Bye.